Welcome back. We saw a lot of great table discussion, and now we are going to do, we're going to take like a little bit of information from each table, but before we do that, one more raffle. There's more, but one more. $40 to the Anchor Inn. 3023. I see hands? Yay! Okay, and now Ariel's going to take it away, and with the mayor and Mickey to help answer questions as needed.
Great. Okay, so we have about half an hour for this, probably about 25 minutes for this part of the evening, and our goal is to hear from every single table, okay? So you're gonna have like 1 to 2 minutes to share, like what is your biggest takeaway or a top question. And we're going to quickly respond to your questions and get through the room, okay? So our goal is to still have enough time left tonight to get you up at around the walls with some other activities. So also hang on to your sheet here. If there's more that comes up for you, feel free to add more reactions, insights, questions on your handout at the table. So, what side of the room should we start with? Do we want to start maybe over here in the corner?
That's a
And we have
volunteer,
the
right?
mayor and we have Mickey that are here to field your questions. Oh, are you ready to go back here? Should we move?
That's what I have. Great plan, but we need more.
Are you ready?
With
How do we
involvement from
protect our
DOT.
oceans and shorelines from intrusive dumping? Because they do. We work with them. They
I
dump
see.
willing to pay the fines, and they always dump near the shoreline, so that's environmental impact.
Mickey, did you hear that?
Is there any way to repeat the question?
Yeah.
So
Let's use the microphone to repeat if we can.
Are you going to answer the questions at the time? So we're going to do a quick answer as best as we can in the time that we have, but knowing that we have these questions documented, and anything that has been asked, we will address before the second session on December 7th. So we might have the abbreviated answer tonight, but we still have your questions. So the question was around the environmental impact of cruise ships and the dumping potential experience that folks at this table have had with cruise ships. No, I think we heard the question. I don't know if Mickey or Dave have anything to.
Yeah, so obviously, you know, from Hunatutum and knowing, in fact, one of those incidents happened in Glacier Bay, which is our homeland. So we're well aware of what that results of that is, and also the effects of that, the consequences of that. And so one of the things we've been really pushing for is environmental standards, and how do we up those environmental standards, and also responsibility. I wanted to mention earlier as well is that we've seen a shift. I worked with the cruise lines for 7 years, directly with them, contracting, and then I moved to Hunatutum, so a little bit over 10 years working with the lines. And there's been a shift in the behavior of lines over time and the way that they work with communities. So I really would encourage you to take a look at, this happens to be, all the cruise lines have this as an environmental sustainability plan. It talks about emissions and the things that are happening. One of the things we're very focused on, especially in this development, is shore power. Like, how do we make it so they can turn off their engines when they're here in port, cut emissions. And if you look at their comprehensive plan, every year what's required of them gets ratcheted up to the point where some ports in Alaska may not become viable unless they figure out a way to have sustainable power there, or we have sustainable power sources lower down the line. So we're very focused on that as part, and we're also very focused on how do we hold the feet to the fire, because obviously to us, you know, we want to protect the oceans as well. But I really think if you take a look at the comprehensive plan, and then also just really quickly, I don't know if I can get Jason Davis who's here as well. Jason Davis is Alaska-based and runs Turnagain Marine, and has done all of our dock construction, and we work with them exclusively on this project as well. But they also developed in Ward Cove, which was a very difficult site to to work in, and maybe you can
Yeah.
just, maybe 20 seconds,
So
Jason.
Ward Cove was a surplus Superfund site, and there was a lot of concern about the legacy issues there when we were driving pilings, bringing in the ship. And we worked with the EPA and DEC and ended up winning a national award and a letter of recommendation from ADEC for environmental enhancement. We developed that site very cleanly and brought a green industry in and did it in a way that improved the circular remedy that had been put in place, the remedial action from the 2000s.
So even in the development process, we're kind of aware, obviously, Hez Bay is also previously was a tank farm, and all those things have to be considered as part of the development. So I appreciate good start question. And we're probably going way over on time, so I know we got 2 minutes.
No, and I'm gonna start recording or timing now, so let's go with this table here.
Okay, I don't think you have to answer all these questions right now. I'll just kind of tell you what they were. We started off with questions rather than what's your group's reaction, because, but what is the business pro forma, meaning like what is the cost and what is the revenue expected for Huna Totem and for the city? I don't think you get rich off of cruise ships docking, so how does it pencil out? What is the cost to the city for all the other items on the list, the seawall, the waterfront park? I mean, again, don't need the answers now. These are things that we're hoping that will come out.
Yeah.
What about our local Native corporation? Where's Chugach Native Corporation? Are they at the table?
Yep.
Okay, and timeline. Once the phase one, what's the next phase time when all these other things start coming into place? And then our group's reaction was, we're really happy it's an Alaska corporation, Alaska company, and that we're us. And then just another thought was that we just really want to make sure that this is Whittier's opportunity to decide who Whittier wants to be. How many ships we need to be at the table, if or when, or if or not. But if it comes, how many ships? What kind of shops? We just need to be sure that we're at the table and that Whittier decides. Southeast Alaska, a lot of those communities are really struggling with large capacity tourism, and they're trying to fix things after the fact. So let's be at the table now and try to guide our path before, instead of trying to fix it.
Awesome, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. And I don't know if I have time to answer any one of those questions, but
30 seconds.
30 seconds. So, we looked at, and I'm trying to remember if I have a slide in the deck about the economic driver. We looked at, for example, off the bat, that this would create 60 job opportunities within the port. We looked at head tax numbers. I think we were at 1.8 previously. This development would push you in an additional 2.4 million in direct head tax revenue. Obviously, there's the sales tax that's part of that. For the initial phase, I'm going quick, aren't I? For the initial phase, we weren't looking for the city for that passenger phase of that $80 million. There's no request on the city to fund any of that. Obviously, those other areas that you might want to play, like the seawall and those other things that have already been approved, there's some money and some tranches that are available for that money for you to do that. We love Chugach. So, and we like to say we don't want to operate where we have regional experts. And to us, there are regional experts as far as our native corp goes. So, thank you for that list of questions, and I'm sure I forgot two. So, good.
Thank you. Let's hear from the next table right here at the door.
Suzanne, are you the spokesman here? We're up.
Oh, you want question?
Well, just in general, what was the talk of the table and what?
Oh, well, we were asked to do just the union sheet of paper, so it could be consulted with these two, we were asked to do that.
Okay.
So,
Maybe share a top takeaway or a top question.
well, you've already heard the main question we had. The other thing was, we put intriguing idea, but foresee some issues, problems with longshoremen operation, having enough room on your boardwalk or whatever you wanna call it, alongside possible trolley and train
Yep.
movement, because our forklifts and trucks need plenty
Yep.
of room to move around, and safety issues and
Yep.
safety for the passengers and everything.
Yeah, you can't see it in this layout here, but and Jason and I were looking at a previous version. But you see this route here, this gray route behind these buildings. What we try to do is to create some passenger and then support separation. So our passengers are moving in one area and our trolley and vehicles would be moving in a separate area. And we haven't, we were looking at measurements and how wide it needs to be, and all that stuff would be discussed. And obviously, we're gonna take feedback and you know, we're gonna loop that in. As I mentioned to you guys privately is that we, at Icy Street Point, one of the things we have to accommodate is for vehicle traffic, for emergency vehicles to come down to the dock. All of that's built into the design, and Jason and his team, they're engineering for all those different factors of weight, load, and including snow load, which is a huge issue to be thinking about here. Yeah, for sure. So that's all part of our.
Is it in response to something? We'll come around back to you.
Okay.
Okay, let's, the table right back here in the corner, or by the food? Yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple of questions here. The first one, while the letter tram is fine, it's a great project, a tram going to the bench across the bay in conjunction with the Forest Service as a partnership opens up some really unique opportunities. Do you have any comment on that?
So you were talking about the gondola system that goes up to the top of the Forest Service. One of the things that we heard and has seen also is that there's a desire for not just a tram. One of the things we look at is guests really want to get out into nature, into wildlife, and that's a huge draw for Alaska. Some, though, like myself, over time have put on the weight, and hiking a trail is not that attractive. Where going up a gondola is more attractive and it gives me access. So we want to create access points. So within the plan, we also want to develop a trail system so people could walk. You know, if we do the partnership, you know, and that comes to fruition with the gondola, to open up some trail systems up at the top for people to have viewing, and just looking at it from the air and, you know, other vantage points, it's really spectacular. So I like that you like the plan. By the way, I feel like I'm in the middle of speed dating. This is fun.
Okay. Second question here was, will the trolley go to all the businesses?
It possibly could, right?
Like, will it go to this part of town, not just on the other side of the tracks?
Well, you know, as this gets developed, you know, we're also developing out Shotgun Cove there, so I think that there has been some concern about all of the business staying at the head of the bay, and I mentioned that before, but you think about all the attractions that I mean, a lot of people have seen, maybe they've seen Janessa's TikTok videos, right? They want to see what's going on, what is this baggage towers that where everybody lives. There's a lot of interesting things within our core area that people are going to want to see, and I think that they'd feel left like they were missing something if they didn't check that out too. So yeah, I think that there's lots of opportunities for that to happen.
Yeah, if I could just tack onto that, I think the key word in life, I always say the fulcrum, right, which is the point at which something balances. So one of the things we had heard in this process was that no one wants to live in a fishbowl, right, where you have buses coming around and peering in your window. So, right, it's the balance of how many guests and what the opportunities are. And like I said, we had originally, like when we started, we had a trolley that would go into Huna. And so we met with town and we said, where are the trolley stops gonna be? And the next year we met with the city and everybody came. And one person said, I'm getting overrun with tourists. I don't want any tourists. And the lady next to him said, no, wait a second. Now you're affecting my business. So, and the way we solved that was actually to move the trolley stop across the street. And we cut one run for that. And that was the balancing act for that season. And every year we have that dialogue and figure out where the stops are. Obviously, if we put in a track system, it might be a little bit different, but you know, there might be a way to extend it as well. So good thoughts. Thank you. So going to the next table,
Yeah,
I know
we'll
we.
move to the next table. Folks in the corner.
Ed, your table back there?
Yeah, we have one question. If this project is approved, will it affect our local business here in Utah since it's a small city?
So if this project is approved, will it affect local business? Obviously our goal is that we affect local business positively. So creating jobs, creating traffic that come to your businesses, that spend money. One of the things that we've noticed, and is not our model, is that a lot of ports that are like these cross-draw are what we would consider a pass-through port. Meaning guests are coming here, the ship comes early in the morning, they disembark their guests, and you get basically zero business. And our goal has always been, how do we slow guests down? One, because it creates a better memory of the places that they're visiting. Also, it creates better economic drivers. So I was just on a side note, I was looking at the scale of where tourism, people spend money in the state between transportation and lodging, and you get like 20% across the board. And one of the largest percentage, still pushing 20%, is actually in souvenirs. And so there's a huge opportunity in creating, a brand around Whittier, and I'm just joking when I say, but I survived the tunnel. We say, we survived the zip ride. But top selling shirt we have is I survived the zip rider. It sells thousands and thousands every year, and our management team drives us nuts. We can't stand the shirt, but everyone wants to buy it. So there's all kinds of great opportunities that get created, and our goal is to slow traffic down so that they're spending time here in Whittier.
Mickey, I think some people are kind of associating this with like an all-inclusive resort, right? Where, if you've been to one, down in maybe down in Mexico or something, where that seems to draw a lot of business away from the community because people don't have to leave the resort. Can you kind of differentiate this from that?
And that's why we like your model similar to ours, where you have a beautiful paved path that leads from the port. If you look at our design models, we created a trail system that leads out. Like we have the back end of it, we put in a campground that leads to the Portage Trail, the historic Iditarod Trail. And so our model is not to lock the guests up there, because this is your community, and people go, oh, I'm here in Whittier, I want to see what Whittier is about, right? We get a tremendous amount of people that they come to town and they say, Hoona, where is Hoona? I want to go see Hoona. And it's on our map. Like, you get off the ship and we hand you a map and shows the trail route to get there. And the other thing I would also point out with that too is that we would anticipate that when we say we want guests to stay, that there are other tours that could be developed. I mean, you mentioned Shotgun Cove Road, and maybe there's a flora fauna tour that's like, photo tours are huge. You mentioned the seafood plant here earlier. We have a tour that sells out every day called Alaska's Wildest Kitchen, and it's just about the prep of halibut. That's all. She prepares halibut in different ways. They go out in the grill and they cook it, and that's a great opportunity for someone here to do. So we see that when they come into town, it's not just they're walking through and looking through your window, but they're coming in and maybe it's a tour operation that you're running, or maybe it's a retail facility. So I think that it's an open slate. Great, thank you for that question. From one of our younger.
Yeah, this table in the front of the
question that we have here is, would there be a possibility for the tunnel to open longer?
Yeah, so the question is there a possibility for the tunnel to open longer?
That's a great question.
And it would make sense, to me it would make sense, but we're in the early stages of that. And we looked at some efficiency models of how we work that out. Obviously, one of the keys to that is how do we get, like right now, the way the system is set up, that they're really trying to move everyone off the ship. We call it a zero balance. So they get to that by around 8 o'clock in the morning, which everyone is off the ship by 8 o'clock and they're moving out of town. And we have historically seen that guests actually want to stay longer. They don't want to get pushed off. It's not a good experience, and so that's something that can be nurtured here as a program in Whittier, where they actually are staying longer, and we're not trying to push everybody through at the same time, but longer hours definitely make sense. And I think also, if history serves me correctly, when Princess first came, they actually paid to permit to open the tunnel earlier. That was part of what they did when they first came. So, we're looking at all of that, and I know, is it Susan? Suzanne. I know Suzanne and I had a conversation about that, and I mentioned that you guys are really the regional experts on that, where those traffic patterns are, and then there are some things that might have to happen and how we figure that out. I think we're in that beginning stages of that, so that's good. open it longer, that makes it easier.
Yeah, if there's any project that could, develop that possibility, this is the type of project that could do it. The other thing that we didn't mention is our clinic is only operating on Mondays right now, if that, right now. And that's due to just the lack of traffic that goes through our clinic. This is something that would develop, I think, we'd have to have a full-time clinic here if this were to go through. So that's another benefit that we haven't talked about. It's one of those social things that would affect the city outside of what we've been talking about so far.
Yeah, there was a series of things that happened in Una because of cruise ship traffic. For example, our clinic, they put search there, that expanded. Also, we were getting few flights, and when the cruise ships came, because it was bringing mail and services, they were coming on those seaplanes. We got more flights, and we get more flights than any small community in Southeast. And then also we got increased barge service, which, I mean, you have that already, but it was really important to our community. And then the other side of that that helped us as well is that during the winter months when things were slow, we were able to operate our small boat fleet to create opportunities for people to go into town, and so those things happen. So as a result, so good question.
Let's do a quick raffle. Jackie, if you want to pull out another raffle number, we are starting to run short on time. Oh, it's right here.
I got it right here. Ticket number 313037. Last 4 digits 3037.
3037.
It's $40 for the Anchor Inn store.
$40. 3037.
Yes.
3037.
Right here.
Right here.
Okay, so our goal here is to get through everyone else in the next 10 minutes and have space to get some stuff up on the walls. So we're gonna go down to a minute. So let's try to be as brief as possible in both the question and the response. This very gentleman right here.
Yeah, so I can say we are a younger table. We are excited for the, some of the things that have been said, like the way that things are being built to utilize the space and not trying to expand further out than is necessary. With that being said, and I'm one of the pastors of the churches here, we have used the head of the bay for church service as well as baptisms, and some of the kids swim in that area. Will we be completely losing all of the beach access for those things?
No, and what you'll see is even on these, you make sure you put your sticker up there, but we are moving basically the head of the bay. So if you're looking at the water to the left, so there's still the park. And the other thing we foresee is that the train depot is really a community space. So where you might have to host a wedding or other events through town, it's really a community space that's being funded through this process. So good. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Let's go to the next table right here.
My question is, how soon will you guys start when that does happen, phase 1?
Yeah, so how soon will we start? So obviously we would, we have to go through a permitting process. And obviously you have a winner to consider as well. So we have to time all of those things. So once, if this body says, hey, we can move ahead, we're really about 6 months from whenever that happens, just in the permitting process before you can have construction. And the other thing I wanted to mention too, because Suzanne mentioned as well around the unions, and that is that we had got a call from our contractors that we normally use in Alaska, and that the Carpenters Union has contacted us, and we already used them in our other projects, so we're looking forward to creating those jobs. But that construction process would start approximately 6 months after we were given the green light from the citizens of Whittier.
Perfect, thank you. Table right here.
I'm actually from Anchorage. My name's Gabe. I'm with the Northwest Carpenters Union. So I guess, is that a commitment to use a
We are
contract?
using them in our current projects, and
Okay.
yeah. So if that's your question, look at that. I'm telepathic.
Okay. And then the piggyback to that was if you had not just a start date, but a projected timeline of construction for phase 1 as far as.
Yeah. So for passenger movement, which includes the dock, the boardwalk, and the train depot, and the turnaround space and the road infrastructure that we perceive. So basically we would take us, and I'm just gonna go like 6 months. So if we were say started in maybe June, July timeframe, we would expect by mid following season that we would have a first call. So So we could, if, like I said, if the body agrees that, we would be looking to try to, Jason and his team are awesome and amazing. Our commercial contractors that we use are good. And I just want to also reiterate too, is that, I just heard a side comment about, this is a long-term plan. So we have this phase, and then what happens, like there's gonna be other opportunities, like around, if there's a lodge opportunity, that makes a lot of sense, maybe, we figure that out. But then there's a whole nother development phase, that goes along, and that there's lots of opportunity that's gonna be phased in along the way, so.
When you say phased in, you mean for public comment, right?
Yeah, well, I would start with public comment, but also that's another layer of jobs and opportunity that gets created too with that. So if you're like representing the contractors, right, there's the first phase to build the boardwalk, and after that's done, whatever comes next, then we come back to you and go, okay, well now we know what's happening next, and maybe it's a community building, maybe it's an amphitheater, I don't know, right? But it creates another layer of opportunity.
Perfect. We're gonna do another raffle.
Ticket number, last 4 digits, 3046.
3046. Right here.
$40.
Yeah, $40 to. Okay.
All right, so we got 3 tables left, so let's hear from you guys right here.
Yeah. We've already discussed the tidal congestion. Where will housing be provided for those people involved in the operation of that? Currently, during the summer, with the cannery and all, we're maxed out in our housing in Whittier.
I personally think it's a great opportunity. So the design of the boardwalk has been to have multi-use, right? So where you might have retail on the lower level, housing above, but that's really determined, like if that's a need that the city has, then that's something that we'd work through with the city. So we see a multi-use phase for this. And also, it's not in this plan, but the housing was also included in the space in another rendering that we did. So there's lots of space there that if that's something that the city wants to move forward with, I think there's a really great opportunity, and obviously there's a need. So usually when there's a need, there's somebody who wants to partner in on that. So.
Okay. What about the fish spawning beds that head to the bay?
So
we have a lot of fish that spawn in those 3 little creeks.
Well, at least in the Shakespeare Creek area, right? And that Shakespeare Creek is definitely set aside and reserved. In Leonard Creek, I'm not so sure that you have too much spawning there in Leonard Creek, but that is something that we've talked about. People want to see fish, right? That is really a big attraction. And I think Dave Goldstein has also mentioned this several times as well, that obviously would be part of the problem. We would want, part of the project, we would want to develop or seed that creek and develop at least a terminal fishery there so that people could see the fish right there, get off the boat. How great would that be?
Yeah, I always liked when you come in and you have all those walkways that you can see the spawning happen, as you come up Portage Road there. It's just beautiful. And this was the spawning, the rearing ponds, but they sit separate from the creeks, and we're maintaining our space there, so it's been considered. So thank you for that.
All right, we've got two tables left.
How many small boats will be, how many increase in small boats will you have?
You mean in the harbor space?
Yeah.
I'll defer to Jason, the engineer, because obviously this has been sketched out, and it depends on the size of the vessel and what.
Yeah, I think in a full build out, we could get a couple hundred slips, and that may not happen all at one time. That also would be driven by what vessels go up there. If that becomes more of the commercial harbor for the bow pickers and the bigger vessels, you may see some of the traffic from the bigger vessels out of this harbor move up. And if that were the case, it would create fewer slips.
But you're only anticipating about 200 more.
That's just a good starting point.
Okay.
You want to read the rest? Jason, if you could just refresh my memory too about like the harbor, the small boat harbor itself. Like Jason and his team could provide drawings and capacity issues and various plans, but really that would be like a public works process that would go through a process. But we are more than happy to facilitate just creating those technical drawings that you would need to know what the options are moving forward and get specific numbers.
Right, and I mean, it could be made bigger. The issue is that we don't want to get into too deep of water and drive the price of the breakwater too high. But when we know what the need is from the community, we can help make that the right size.
Yeah, we've got a long wait list for our harbor, so I know where that question comes from. It does seem like there's a market for much less for term.
You know, one of the things that we were also said was that we think it's a great plan, but there's a lot more planning that needs to be done. Department of Transportation, the railroad, everyone has to be involved in this, and the congestion is going to be at the tunnel. You know, we've got traffic for ambulances and stuff that there's a major need for things here, and so that's a big concern.
Yeah, exactly. This is not what you're seeing here is a conceptual plan, but there is a lot more planning that needs to go into this project, and these guys already have some of that experience, so it's great to partner up with them, I think.
Yeah, and I would just also reiterate too is that we are trying to also create the infrastructure backbone for some of those things. Like you said, the clinic, if you don't have the tax base, it's hard to justify the clinic and the added needs that it would create. So once again, I come back to Fulcrum, right? It's a balancing point. So how do we balance that? How do we strategically move guests? And maybe that involves thinking about the way traffic has moved before in a different way. And also, I was talking to someone about boats in the harbor earlier too, about boat storage and how you move boats in the water. That could be all thought about differently than our drawing shows for boat slips. I mean, it might be a lift that's running boats, and there's a lot more revenue in that to just have boats stored and then put down. And I know that's very popular in other parts of the world, where you just pull in and you drop your coolers in the boat and you go. And that's a whole nother model that would require less space here at the head of the bay, but also could create more revenue for the city as well.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. The other thing to keep in mind is the tunnel is not going anywhere, right? We still have the tunnel. The beautiful thing about living here is we live in a gated community, right? That aspect doesn't go away. It does cause some complications, but this is still one of the safest communities to live in, maybe in the whole United States, and that doesn't go away, right? We still can limit, the traffic that comes in as well as, the traffic that flows there.
Actually, some of the old timers in Whittier may remember a task force put together when the tunnel was open to cars. So you've been through this before.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're gonna do a raffle, and we're gonna hear from our last table.
3052.
3052. 3052.
Going once.
What this is for.
Going twice.
My concern is
Okay, that one's gone. 3044.
3044. We couldn't have planned that one better, could we? That was good.
All right, so we got one more table. Would you like to share?
Yes.
The youth of the community speaks.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with our questions first. We had two of them. First one is, why is this project wanting to be done? Like, what is the reasoning behind the project? And the second question is, how big will it be?
So the main question, or the main answer to that is this project will help secure the future of Whittier, right? It'll drive enough revenue so that the city will be able to afford to take care of itself. It'll be able to pave streets. It'll be able to redo its infrastructure as it ages out. So that's the main reason here. It's going to create some jobs. It'll make some things a lot nicer for the residents here with some of the amenities that go along with it. But ultimately, we got to think about, when you get older and are living here, hopefully 20, 30 years from now, there'll still be a city here, right? There'll still be some infrastructure here that you'll be able to enjoy. Hopefully there'll be more housing here. so that not everyone has to live in Baggage Towers or in the Manor. There'd be choices for housing, and a lot of other things that could go along with that. And then the project is really just as big as we allow it to get, right? That we still have a say in what happens here. Right now, the main thing is the cruise ship dock, right? That's step one, is getting a cruise ship dock built so that that will help drive the main revenue. After that, you know, we can say, I guess one thing to mention is that there is 58 acres up there that is available, but they're only going to use a very small portion of that. And even that 58 acres is less than half of the size of the whole head of the bay area up there. So sometimes if you look at these pictures, it looks like that whole area, the whole head of the bay is going to be taken up by that project. And that's not true. You know, these pictures kind of put it out of, you know, out of scale, if that makes sense. So it really is just a small portion that's going to be used up there when you compare it to the whole size.
All right, we're gonna move, last clarifying question real quick.
I have one more question for you.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
How about disabled veterans or disabled people or young children and stuff for a fishing dock, a fishing pier? Where are we gonna put that stuff? You know, because right now, not everybody can afford to take a charter out and go fishing.
Yeah, no, that's a great suggestion, right? And I'm sure that, well, they probably have some examples down there in Hoona, right, for locals for fishing?
Yeah, and also I was just going to show the seawalk too. The seawall, one of the things, you know, I would think it'd be a great element, fishing opportunity off the seawall as well, because we connected that at the very head. Because once again, it creates a new walking opportunity for people to go and to even create some sort of floating connection when boats aren't moving through. So I think that there'll be some great fishing opportunities, and that's a great piece of input that part of the comprehensive plan, right, as we move forward.
Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left, and there's 3 things that we would like to do. We're gonna do, after I give instructions, we'll announce one more raffle. So number 1, there's if you still have more questions, maybe they're not captured on your worksheet, they're not in the box, please take a Post-it. So there's Post-its at your table, there's Post-its in the back of the room, next to the gentleman with the hood, the green hood. There are some supplies, and so we'd like you to add any remaining questions. So maybe this conversation has spurred more questions. Even if you have comments, we'd like to hear from you. So please add them up on that question wall. There's also a question wall out in the hallway. So, and there's supplies at both of those stations. The second thing that we'd like you to do is there are dots here. There's red, green, and yellow dots. And you're going to see there are 2 different printouts of what this development could look like. One from a lens of attractions, right? So there's a lodge, there's a salmon viewing pond, there's a campground, there's an amphitheater, there's a cultural center. And then on this view, there's from a transportation lens. So train, boat, bus parking, trolley. What we'd like you to do is take, there'll be dots up at the front of the room. You have 5 dots to use. Green means you're excited. So let's say I'm really excited about this amphitheater. I'm gonna put a dot right here next to the label of the amphitheater. Let's say I have more questions about the train depot. So I'm gonna put a yellow dot right here by the train depot. That means I have more questions. And then lastly, red means I have a concern or I have a hesitation. So let's say I have a hesitation around the overflow boat parking. So I would put that dot right here. This helps us get a sense of like, what is the community interested in, passionate about, and where are some things we need to get more clarity for the community, and what are some things that we need to address for the community or concerns to mitigate. So there are, come up here, don't use more than 5 dots. If you're not concerned about anything, don't use a red dot, right? If you're all go, all green, super excited, use all of your green dots. It's up to you to choose where you put the dots and what color you choose. And then lastly,
and this should be pretty easy, how do you feel as you're walking out of this room and you've spent the time that you've spent in here, and again, thank you for that. What's your gut check? How are you walking away from it? And we all go all the way from just the bare minimum, nope, not for me, to I'm still skeptical, I need more info, I'm open, I like it, and of course finally I love it. So there's some blue sticky dots that you can put by whatever emoji is where you're feeling.
Right here at this table. Okay, we're gonna send the raffle.
Okay, we got 2 more. So you want to do one now and one later, or do you want to do them both now?
Up to you.
Both now. Do them both
Let's do
now.
both, yeah, both now.
Both now, okay. All right. All right. All right, come on, lucky numbers. Here we go. For $80, the number 3035.
3035.
Bless you all. Congratulations. Yeah. All right, and the last one. The last one for $100 for the Cozy Corner Store, 3054.
I'll take it.
You got it. Congratulations. Yeah. Yeah.